everyone, welcome back to Talk Tech with Tiff. Today I sat down with Sumit, who is the Chief Design Officer at Digital Dash. We are diving into how he came over from India to Canada, what his experience was like, tips on entrepreneurship, and so much more. I hope you enjoy it. Welcome to my new series called Talk Tech with Tiff, where I am sitting down with industry professionals to hear about their career journeys and current roles. I created this series to hear from people who are established in the tech industry so that we can all learn what these individuals do in their day-to-day jobs and the type of opportunities that are out there. Okay, let's get started. Hi, Sumit. How's it going?
Hey, Tiffany.
Nice to have you here. Thank you for taking time on this Saturday. It's gorgeous. Well, it looks gorgeous out, maybe not the weather.
I mean, you know, the weather, it's Canada.
I know.
It's very... It's either cold or it's hot, and you never know. You know, you got to check the weather app every day.
I know, it's true. I know. And as your co-founder, Cam, was saying earlier, you can't be in Canada without talking about the weather. So here we are, first starting it by talking about the weather.
Exactly. I mean, you know, I come from somewhere where it's like super warm. So,
yes.
You know, it's very different coming here and like, you know, stepping out. It looks sunny and suddenly you step out and it's like freezing cold.
It's like, a whole different story. I know. Well, on that note of you're not originally from Canada, that was actually my first question I had for you is tell me a little bit about yourself and your background. And you are the co-founder of Digital Dash, but leading up to that, what's your story?
Well, that's
a big question.
That's a big question. What's my story? Let's see. Well, I'll start from where I'm from.
Yeah.
So I think that'll be like a little origin story, you know, like a hero origin story. No, I'm kidding. But, you know, I was brought up in India. I studied there for, let's say, 17 years, and then I moved to Canada for university. In fact, I studied computer engineering, so I know a little bit of coding.
Yeah.
I was deep into the dev world, but honestly, I hated coding. I just did not like it. Mm-hmm. And, you know, growing up in India, just I had a very big creative side with like music, with art, with drawing and things like that, but I never really like pursued it as a career. But getting into tech, seeing that there's a whole side of it with like UX design and like user experience and things like that, I was like, okay, I like drawing, I like doing photography, all these things, but I'm also coding, right? But what's like the intersection of these two things in tech? And you know, the rest was history. I learned about UX design and I'm like, that's what I want to do.
Yeah. When you went to school for computer engineering, so did you self-teach as far as all UI, UX and design? Did you self-teach that?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. Well, initially I did. I was very grateful to have a lot of friends in tech. Mm-hmm. So a lot of them did mentor me, pointed me in like the right direction, what resources to learn and things like that. And this was actually one of the trips that I took back to India. Interestingly enough, I met someone who was a UI UX teacher.
Oh, wow.
And he's like, yeah, I can mentor you and I can help you out. So, I mean, he sent me a bunch of resources and that's how I got started. Wow. But more than that, I learned a lot just by applying myself. Mm-hmm. You know, I started with helping out with some people who had some ideas and they're like, okay, I have like a website that I want to create, but I have no idea how to design it.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I can take that on.
That's awesome.
Help you out.
Yeah, exactly. Just being willing to take on different projects and learn as you go.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It was fun. Definitely fun.
Yeah. Well, now you're CDO, Chief Design Officer. So clearly it worked out good for you.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, I call myself a Chief Design Officer. But, you know, I started off with UX design, but the whole reason why I kind of shifted my title from like product designer to chief design officer was because, you know, I feel like a lot of people limit themselves with like giving themselves like titles, the jobs that they have, right? Yeah. So for me, because I gave myself the title UX design, I thought of design only from like the perspective of something that I'm creating digitally, right? Like a tech platform or something of that sort. Yeah. But I kind of shifted my role when I kind of gave myself this title, Chief Design Officer, because I'm like, okay, I can think of design now as a more holistic approach, zoom out and think of design in terms of what design is for the company.
Yeah.
So that could be something like, I don't know, what our brand management is, our brand assets, things like that. or thinking more in terms of like marketing or just anything to do with design, right?
Yes, expand.
Yeah.
I love that. That's really great. Well, before we jump in more about Digital Dash, going back to a bit about your background and your story, what was it, as I mentioned prior to us starting our chat here, I mentioned I get asked a lot about people who are interested, maybe they're living in India or maybe they're living in a different country and they want to come to Canada. What was, and I know everyone's experience is so different, but what was your experience like with that? And I guess if you have any advice, I know these are really big questions here, but if you have any advice for anyone looking to make that move or make that leap.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very interesting question. I think I've experienced tech in India, experienced tech over here as well. And there is a significant difference in a certain thinking that you have to adopt, I would say. In India, it's very, I would say a little bit more confined when you're working in the tech space. It's like we've given you certain things to do, certain objectives, and you got to get that done. But really coming to like a country like Canada, or if you want to work, let's say, I mean, even in the US or like a North American company, what they really expect from you is not to just figure out what you need to do. It's like you need to have a little bit more of like that product knowledge. You got to think a little bigger than just the task you're given, right? So I think how I like to think of it is that, you know, in India, you're given the solution to a problem and you just have to create it.
Yeah.
But over here, it's you got to find what the problem is and then also create the solution as well. So if you can kind of shift that thinking, I think it'll be quite an easy transition into getting a job, maybe in North America, or even really pushing the boundaries at your job over here.
Yeah. How do you shift that thinking? Was it something that just kind of came naturally for you, or just even recognizing it and acknowledging it and kind of shifting it from there?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think for me at least it came naturally just because, you know, I was pushed into the world of entrepreneurship. So it's like, yeah, I see the problem, right? So I'm creating the problem, like I'm figuring out what the problem is and then creating the solution.
Yeah.
So it kind of came naturally just because I had to do that, right? But I feel like if you take the more traditional route of getting a job and things like that, it might be a little difficult because when you first start, you don't know. Well, people need to tell you what to do to start off with, right? But honestly, my advice to kind of figuring out product knowledge is take on more responsibility, really figure out what product you're working on, you know, see how you can make an impact on that product. And once you start figuring that out and like figuring out, like, let's say if you're in dev or you're a developer, how coding it in one certain way will impact, like, you know, impact, let's say, the user or impact, you know, the actual business that you're working for. Right?
Yeah, exactly. I like that. You mentioned, you know, your entrepreneur, you started out pretty much as an entrepreneur, really, when you were in school still. What was that like? Let's talk a bit about Digital Dash. How did it come? You mentioned to me that you started in school. Tell me a bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, Digital Dash was I guess, a bit of luck in its conception. But yeah, I graduated in 2020, which was like the cusp of COVID, right? So it was an interesting time. It was like everyone was sitting at home. They didn't know what to do, right? So a bunch of me and my friends, my co-founder actually, like, okay, we got to make a little bit of money on the side. So how do we do that, right? And thankfully enough, each one of us, it's me, Cam, and then our buddy Javon, who isn't here today, but had like a certain set of skills that worked well together. Yeah. So me on the design side, Cam more on the business strategy side, and a little bit of development, and then Javon, our hardcore coder.
Yeah.
So we have like what it takes to make like a complete product or a complete website. So we were like, why don't we just go out there and do it?
Yeah.
So we did, and we got amazing feedback. We got really positive feedback, and we saw real potential in it. And we were like, okay, this is something we can do. So we were like, why not just pursue this? We got our validation, and make this a real business and see where we can take this. So that's how it started.
Yeah, very organically, you know, hey, I have skill set, you have a different one. Let's put it together and see what happens.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, I make it sound like, oh, yeah, it just happened. And it was like, oh, yeah, we figured it out.
Yeah.
But of course, there was like a lot of like difficulty and uncertainty for sure. But it was interesting for sure.
Yeah. How did you navigate that difficulty or uncertainty, or even, you know, I know this term is used a lot, but I'm going to use it, imposter syndrome. When you're first starting a company, putting yourself out there, I'm sure at some points you're doubting yourself or doubting if this is the right decision. How do you overcome that?
Yeah, that's again, these are amazing questions.
I want to hear you. I'm so curious.
Yeah. No, that's great. You know, it does happen a lot because, you know, when you first start your own company or when you're first starting out, you always question, am I doing the right thing?
Yeah.
Is this the right way to go about it? Right? I don't think that ever goes. I think, you know, there's always some amount of imposter syndrome that you will always feel. But the thing is, it's like having that courage, right? So, you know, people define courage as people think, oh, people are fearless. They don't feel that fear and they just go in and do it when they see people. But the actual truth is that you got to have courage, right?
Yeah.
And what I define courage is that going through with something, actually getting something done, even though you have that certain amount of fear, right?
I like that. I really like that.
So it's more about, I guess the mental shift that I made was that it doesn't matter, right? At this point, I am starting my business out. It's okay to fail, right? But the thing is, it's what I take out of it.
Yeah.
Because no matter what step I take, it's going to be net positive, right? So let's say if I take on a project and have to make a certain decision and the decision wasn't the right decision and I know things happened and, you know, the project got scrapped, let's say, right? But at the end of the day, like, I at least know that that wasn't the right decision. So if I'm put in that spot again, I know that I have to take a different route.
Exactly.
So at the end of the day, you're always learning, you're always growing. Positive. So it's perfect.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, you know, looking at it from a learning perspective, that even if you fail or it's not necessarily the right move or whatever it is, it's still a learning and you know you won't make it again because of that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's awesome. Digital Dash, where do you see it going? I know right now, is it just the three of you or do you have some other team members as well?
Yeah. So, well, it initially just started with three of us, but we have a big solid team of 10, which I'm very proud of.
Yeah, I was going to say, I thought when I was creeping on you on LinkedIn, I'm like, I swear I saw there was more.
Yeah, so it's slowly growing. We're trying to sustainably grow as well, so it's great. Trying to grow in the right direction.
Yes.
It's great. But where we're kind of trying to take it is, you know, when people think of development or they think of just making a tech product, they think, oh, we can just hire like a developer on Fiverr or Upwork and they'll take whatever idea we have and just create it, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't understand that it takes a lot more than just development. There are a lot of pieces that move around to just create like an impactful product that people can use, right? So that's kind of our goal, where we really hit at Digital Dash is more than just development or just design. We really focus on the consulting and strategy side. You know, it's amazing because we work with a lot of startups. We work with a lot of people that have amazing ideas, but they just don't understand the tech side at all, right? So we take like their business requirements and then we really translate that into like actionable like roadmaps, into technical requirements, and then helping them build a product that really provides value at the end of the day, right? Because, you know, just being in the business, and I'm sure you know as well, is that there's so many people working on so many different like tech products. Like every day there's maybe like thousands of tech products being released, right? But a lot of them don't work out because they don't know how to provide value to their user, right?
Yes, exactly.
And that's what we really want to focus on.
I totally agree. You know, building an app or building any kind of product is one thing. That's one thing. Like you said, you can go on Upwork or Fiverr. Granted, maybe it's not going to be scalable. Maybe it's not the right solution. The tech stack, that stuff, all you can provide too. But the other side of it, of the value and getting those. It's hard to get users. It's hard to get people to sign up. And that's an art. So the fact that you're providing that knowledge and that foundation for companies is so valuable.
Yeah, because, a lot of people think, I'm going to make something great and people are just going to come towards it and then they're just going to use it. But that's hardly the case, right? You got to really spend. Well, the methodology that I use is, you have to spend 50% of your time and money on developing the product, but the other half has to be gaining traction.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Because if nobody knows about your product and you release it, how do you expect to have users, right?
I know.
Yeah.
I know. It's so true. And I think that's often missed. I get asked a lot, hey, I have this great idea. We should build this. We should do this. And I'm like, okay, but how are you going to get the users? Mm-hmm. Building is it's one thing, but yeah, 50, I like that 50% on the other side of things. Yeah. That's really cool. So I know you're expanding, you're growing Digital Dash. When you were first starting out though, now I'm sure it's much easier to find clients or find customers, but how did you find the customers when you were first starting out?
So, yeah, I mean, you got to start with your own network, the network that you have, right? I mean, a lot of people don't realize that the value of their network. Mm-hmm. It's because you just need to be confident in the way you talk, right? And confident in the services you provide. And then if you just keep talking about that with like the people you're around or the people you network with or your friends or your dad's friends or your mom's friends.
Yeah, utilize your family, utilize your friends.
Honestly. And then you just keep talking about that and you don't realize that a lot of people have ideas in their head. They just don't know how to execute, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So that's how we initially started. I was just talking to people saying we want to start this or we've been doing this and we're trying to build out this practice.
Yeah.
And a lot of the people in my network were like, yeah, we really want to do this, but we just don't know how to do this whole tech side of it, right?
Yeah.
So I think that really, that's how I made our first few sales.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but that was great.
And then I'm sure from there, it almost becomes word of mouth. They're like, hey, we got this built for us. It's amazing.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the referral thing, right? So if you make a good impression on your client, good impression, you do them right, you create the right product, you help them in a way, eventually they're going to talk about it, right? Because they need to sell their product as well, right? So they're going to be like, oh, it was such a good time working with Digital Dash, right? And then somebody will ask, oh, what's Digital Dash? And then that's how we get our next client. But yeah.
I know I used to work in a tech incubator hub, lots of buzzwords in that one sentence. But I used to work there and there was a lot of different startups within that. And I would see a lot of times these startups face that point that many successful startups do where they get asked the question of getting bought out. Hey, we want to buy your company. Hey, we want to, from other companies. But it's like your baby. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious to know, what are your thoughts on that with Digital Dash? And maybe your answer today is different than it is tomorrow, or maybe it's just, I don't know.
Yeah. That's an interesting question because it has come up.
Oh, it has.
And then we've also thought of it as well. But I think when somebody approaches you to buy your startup or buy your company, that just gives you validation that you're on the right track.
Yeah,
right?
I like that.
So if you truly believe in the product that you're building or truly believe in the service you're providing, I would say keep going, right? Of course, it's attractive to take the deal now, but understand that if you truly believe it's going to go in the direction that you want it to, right? Because of course you're the founder, so you got to push it in that way. Then just keep it. It is your baby. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Right? I like that. I really like that. There's a lot of people who will probably be watching this who want to emulate what you have done, whether it be maybe for a different business, but build a startup and grow it. What is some advice you would have to people who are looking to make that leap? Maybe they're working a 9-to-5 now, maybe they're in school, but what advice would you give them for making their own startup?
Right. Well, the advice I would give is that, when you work like a 9-to-5 job or you have like something stable, making that leap is well, it creates a lot of uncertainty, right?
Yeah.
Because you're going from something that's very structured and very secure to something that like you have no idea how it's going to turn out, right? So the thing is, the advice I would give to them is trust yourself, right? Because if you're really making that leap for something that you believe in, do it, right? Regardless of like the insecurity it's going to cause you or like the uncertainty, because at the end of the day, right, if you're really working towards something that you really believe in, it's like you chase that fulfillment. You really feel fulfilled at the end of the day. Like for me, if I was working like a corporate job and work the same hours I work for Digital Dash, I don't think I'd be as fulfilled or like even want to work those hours, to be honest.
Yeah, it's true.
Because, I've had days where like I've been working 18 hours straight and then I don't feel like it's work to me because it's like I see where the impact I'm creating immediately, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's your own mission. It's something that you fully believe in. It's yours. And I think with anything, when it's yours, you want to work harder and more for that versus
exactly
at a
like
company.
It kind of switches because it's no longer work, right? Of course, there are pieces that like you need to get done that do feel like work, but the chunk of the task that you have to do throughout the day is quite fulfilling because you see the direct impact, right?
I have a question for you. That this is something that has been on my mind a lot, and I think you'd be a good person to answer it. Is so outside of my business, TIFF and Tech, I work full time at a corporate company doing software development, and I get asked a lot, or get told, I should say, a lot by people. TIFF, you need to do at least, I'm 4 years in corporate total. At least like 5 or 8 years before you go do something on your own. And there's just, there's that side of things, which I don't necessarily agree with, but it makes taking that leap. So it's always in the back of my head. And I think it's so interesting. And I really, really admire you for right out of school, going into building your own business and believing in yourself and your skills enough that you're like, I don't need to learn from a corporate company. I don't need to do that. I mean, a lot of the things you learn in corporate companies are old school anyways. So, but it's really inspiring hearing your story about how you did that.
Thank you. I appreciate it. But I think to answer your question, which was related to how do you make that leap, right? Or like, how do you really push yourself to go into that is, well, for me, I understood that if I had a certain level of comfort with a certain thing, I would be kind of lazy to kind of push myself to go forward, right?
It's true.
So for what I did, well, it's very unconventional, but I kind of took out like all my safety nets. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to take out all the security I have because at the end of the day, well, to be honest, you need some level of desperation to push you to that level of success or that level of excellence, right? So for me, taking that leap, well, and at the age that I am, I didn't really have a lot of responsibility. So I was like, this is the perfect time for me to do it. So, I mean, to your question where people are like, oh, you should wait 7-8 years, build up a certain amount of capital and things like that. I mean, there's never going to be a right time. You just need to do what feels most right for you, right?
Exactly.
And, I use a principle that my co-founder kind of taught me is that you're never going to have a complete 100% decision. You're going to be like 100% convinced in going one direction. It's just like what feels more right for you. So what's the 51% for you?
It's so true. Yes, I like the numbers too. I always like to visualize numbers. That's a good one for me.
Yeah.
Last question I have for you, and I ask everyone who comes on here this question is, what advice would you give to your younger self?
That's a great question again. But my answer to that would be, I wouldn't give my younger self any advice.
Oh, I like this.
Because I feel like I'm exactly where I should be in the exact time I should be. Because if things didn't work out the way it did in my past, I don't think I would have been in this exact same spot. And I'm truly grateful for where I am, and I'm very excited for where I'm going to be.
Yes.
So, each piece of advice has come to me at the right time, because even though, let's say I could give my younger self advice, I don't think I'd be ready to accept it at that point.
Yeah.
I'll be like, who's this old guy? I don't think it's really me.
Yeah, what's he talking about? I like that. Each piece of advice has come to me at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great way to end this, I think. I really like that. Hearing about your story and how you started Digital Dash, it was so inspiring, and I'm leaving this interview feeling really motivated and inspired. So thank you for being here today.
Of course. It was great chatting. I think this was an amazing podcast. I really appreciate coming on, and thanks for having me.
Awesome. I'm going to link Digital Dash down below so everyone can go check more about it out.
Yeah, you should, definitely. And we can help you out maybe.
Yeah, exactly.